welcome to our 8th episode of Creeping Up the Candle. Can't believe it's been 8 already. Today we are going to have a think about curacy and how we train our curates. Am I more than an extra pair of hands, or am I even worse than an extra pair of hands? Lots to think about. But before we begin, we need to start, as we always do. John, the Lord be with you.
And also with you. It seems that in the church and in some contexts there is a misconception about training curates, that they are not just an extra pair of hands. I think it's important that curacy is understood as a crucial time for training. I mean, when I was doing my own curacy, and before that, when I joined the Church of England, of course I brought with me the experience in the Roman Church. Training in the Roman Catholic Church works slightly different because you spend 6 years in seminary training and then you are ordained. And there's not such a thing as a curacy as such. But in the Church of England, I was told that, of course, you spend 3 years in theological college as a theological formation, and then the 3 years of your curacy is part, again, of this kind of 6 years of training. But it is the 3 years of curacy in the Church of England is a more hands to work, a more contextual training, still training of the process of becoming a priest.
So, do you not? I didn't realise you didn't do curacies. I'm about to go off script before we even start.
Not in the Roman
Did you
Catholic
not?
Church. No.
So you just get given a parish as soon as you're trained?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Anyway, back to the script. Yes, so it's amazing how many people they see you turning up, you're in a dog collar, you look like the finished article and assume, oh, that's good, we've now got 2 priests. But in fact, I am here very much to be trained. I
think a misconception and it is a recipe for disaster to think that the curate will do all this, that and the other, because it doesn't allow the curate to flourish and the parish to flourish together with the curate.
Our parish is really good. They've had curates and they seem to understand what I'm here for, and have been very good at training. So anyway, how do we train our curates? There's the obvious bit where once a month we get let out of the parish to meet up with all the other curates, and we are trained on some aspect of priesthood, whether it be how to celebrate the Eucharist or church growth or the legal stuff around it. Basically, there is one day where we are given the information, and that looks like the one day of training, but of course there's far more to it than that. We learn so many different ways, and I think actually for all the Wednesdays out that I've done have been useful and informative. Where the actual learning has taken place has been in the parish, because when you train for many more mechanised jobs, it might be a case of, here, this is how you use the machine, or here's the latest scheme we're teaching to. All of these things are disseminated, so possibly formal training in a lecture hall or a seminar room works really well. But because becoming a priest is about who you are, so much of the training happens on the job. And it really boils down to the relationship that you have with your TI, what they train you in and how you're trained.
It is the idea of an apprenticeship, isn't it? That it is learning the resources, and it's not as much as the skill to be developed, but it is to develop the personality, to flourish, and to be aware of the resources and develop personal resources. Yeah,
I think the apprenticeship one, I think I've heard it called pets and owners as well. But yeah, the apprenticeship idea is a good one. So am I, in fact, more work rather than an extra pair of hands?
Oh, Mairi, you are loads of extra work. You could not believe it. Well, I mean, with all fairness, yes, I think the first months of a curate, it is, because you expect a bit more of time dedicated to the curate, because again, it is not an extra pair of hands, and it depends on the person. Might need more or less attention on that. But I mean, there is an extra layer of things to do and things to consider. but I will not see it as just extra work.
No.
I think it is an enriching experience, hopefully for you, and certainly for me and for St. Paul's.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's it. And all the way along it has been. So I've heard it said, curates, they're no use for the first 15 months because they're not fully trained yet. But I think as we've walked along this together, we've both found changes and learning have happened, haven't we?
Again, another misconception really of training a curate. If you think that for the first 15 months the curate will not be useful, is that you don't understand the nature of the curacy.
Yeah.
The curacy and the curate is useful all the time, always.
Not always, we're very useful.
For different things.
Finding new shoes.
Because it's not a matter of being useful. It is a whole different dynamic.
Yeah. Yes, it changes partly how the parish runs, I guess, because there's an extra person to be considered. So you're right. I mean, at the beginning, I think we did one supervision a week, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which is a lot of time.
It was, yes.
So
mainly we discussed shoes.
There's a new pair.
A new pair
which are green, which would be perfect for.
Would you like to explain to our followers?
I think we've discussed the shoes before, but there's a particular type of shoe that I do like with flowers on, and yeah, one of our congregation very kindly pointed out they've brought out a new pair in green.
In green, well, ordinary time.
Ordinary time, if we can refer you to episode 2 or 3. We spend a lot of time wearing green vestments, so the fact that there are green flowery shoes is a source of great happiness.
Well, do update us when you get them. And now let's go back to the curacy.
Would you like to go back to this? This is why I'm so useful.
What is it, and how would you describe then the curacy?
I think it's about being equipped with some resources. So obviously there are set pieces where you've taught me this is how we are on the altar. This is how we run a funeral, and obviously these are the bits that can be adapted to make it more personal and so on. So there are those which I've learnt, but the thing that's kind of surprised me is that the reflection and the observing you has changed not just how I do it, but also how I think about being a priest. So I think a lot of the training which has been useful has been in terms of developing me as well.
Absolutely. I think a curacy should be that time of reflection, of learning, of trying things, and it is. The curacy should be a safe place to try new things.
Yeah.
For the curate to celebrate the strengths and reinforce the strength, and to be confronted with the areas that need a bit further learning, to be challenged, and I think that's the way in which you can grow, and we can all grow as curate. And it's not just to say the curate will do the difficult, the hard work, or the extra pair of hands. No. It is the safe place to try, and to try and try again.
Until we get it right. No, I think you're right, and that's why curacies are all so different, aren't they? Because we all arrive as, with all our different skills, people have had various chances to lead things in church or whatever. So each curacy is necessarily going to be about what can the curate do now, and what will they find challenging. But yeah, I think the time to learn about myself has been really interesting as well. So I was expecting to find children's work, leading, all that sort of thing easy, because it's a transfer from teaching. But I hadn't anticipated that being a learner would be such a change. So I was used to being in the classroom, in charge, I knew what I was doing, but now I find that I'm having to learn new things, and I'm more like my children than I thought I was. It's quite worrying.
Has that been a revelation?
I do sometimes find I come from a kind of home going, goodness me, where's your homework? and then I arrive in the vestry and go, John, where's my keys? But it is interesting to see, yes, that I think I learn like them as well. So much more doing, and we're all very busy, I think, in our family, whereas you tend to take things in a more linear fashion. So.
Well, we are very different. We work in different ways.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, different personalities, different characters cannot work together.
Yes.
Isn't it? And it is in the way in which the agreement and the relation of training incumbent curate is established and developed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also learn in a different way, I suppose.
So do you think that having a curate's changed you? Is it a two-way street?
I think so. I find having a curate a very positive thing for my life and for my ministry. I think it is really important to have, and I value very highly to have somebody to work alongside, a colleague, alongside, with whom you can reflect together, you can bounce back ideas, you can learn from each other. When I finished my curacy, which is not that long ago, and I became an incumbent, I did miss my trainee incumbent a lot, because it was that that relationship, having a colleague, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a parish that you are the top dog, and then you think, I don't have anyone to reflect or to ask or to say, what do you think about this and about that? And I find this so useful for life and ministry, because just sometimes sharing an idea, it just helps you to develop further. Because otherwise you ended up in your echo chamber or just your own thoughts, and another point of view helps to develop further, and you see things you didn't see before.
Yeah, and I think working with you has helped me understand. So obviously we know I'm a fluffy liberal, but I really, really am. It's not that I've looked at the church and gone, oh, that is the niche that would fit me. It's who I am. And I think, therefore, I ask you why you do things in a different way quite a lot. And I think maybe having to explain it to me.
It's certainly a way for me to learn. Because the moment somebody says, well, explain me why do you do this, and the reasons, they're always a reason. Then you have to formulate, and then sometimes you think, now hold on, how do I explain this, that I know why am I doing it and it's important, but how do I communicate? And I think this is the key element, a good communication as a basis for a successful curacy. Communications in the sense of being trustworthy, transparent, and good communication. That things are set. And that is in the way in which we explain why we do what we do. Feedback and so on. And I think the learning, because I would learn a lot from you. You say you are a fluffy liberal. I don't know. I would not comment.
You would comment.
But it's been really good to reflect on some of the topics that I might have. A different point of view in some of. I mean, we agree in lots of things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But we do have sometimes a different perspective in other matters, which that's a really good way to enrich our mutual learning.
And I think because it's a personal thing, so like I could go to a lecture, for example, and be told this is what people further up the candle than you think, and I'd be like, lovely, note it down, moving on with my life. But because we're having to live it out together, I understand why it's important to you, and that makes it come alive far more than just, this is how you fold the corporal, Mairi.
And it is this bouncing back, learning from each other, without the necessity or the intention to change the other person.
No, not at all.
Beliefs or opinions, because that's certainly not my job.
No.
To convince you to think the way I think.
Which is good, really.
My job is to just explain why I do what I do, and help you to flourish, developing those resources for your future ministry as incumbent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and so in that way, it's very much not just being a spare pair. I don't think of you as a spare pair of hands either, John.
I'm glad to hear.
Although it's all sounding a bit waffly, isn't it? And fluffy. It's not just about us getting on and surviving the 3 years. There's a formal process behind it. I think I mentioned earlier the formal training that we get. And every year you write a report on me. I
do. At the end of the year, there's a report that assesses the learning, as we've been talking, according to the qualities, the formation qualities of the Church of England, which is a set of standards,
Yeah.
I would say, professional standards, that your experience as curate is kind of compared or follows.
Yeah.
Things like love for God, love for people, wisdom, potential, fruitfulness.
Yeah.
And
So, in fact, even just listing those, it's quite clear, isn't it, that some of them are taught things and some of them are very much personal development, reflective things,
right.
all of which goes into the final report, and that goes on. We've got a supervisor who checks it over, and in fact, we had not mentioned her. So, Mother Jennifer, she runs the training sessions and comes out to visit us initially, I think, just to make sure that we're behaving.
Absolutely. That the curate is behaving.
No, no chance of the TI behaving. So, in fact, yeah, so it's not just the two of us figuring this out. There's a structure, and so Mother Jennifer comes out, and once a year in our case. I think if things were going wrong, she might come more frequently. Fortunately, touch wood, we haven't experienced that yet.
And that she's there to help,
yeah, absolutely,
and support. And then, of course, the report goes to the bishop.
Yes.
And then the special report at the end of your first year to be ordained priest. And then there's a big report at the end of your curacy, at the end of the 3 years of curacy, that then, of course, enables the bishop to write your final letter of signing you off from your curacy.
Yeah. So hopefully that kind of answers it. It was actually a question from a listener, how am I trained? And the answer is, well, 3 ways, isn't it? Largely through the apprenticeship reflection, also through the training sessions that I go to once a month, and then there's the overarching training that the Church of England has approved, which obviously we're answerable to the bishop for, which is the qualities and the things that is needed. And they're slightly different if you're training to be an incumbent like John, hopefully me, where you would be qualified then to run a church. Slightly different criteria if you're training to be, I don't know the official word.
Self-supportive or stipend?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, so basically there is a very big structure which we fit into and are governed by. But on a personal level, it really does feel that a lot of the learning is done through reflection. And
experience, lived experience of the reflection of that lived experience of ministry.
Things I wouldn't do again.
In the context.
Yeah. So I think that's, and you know, and of course all the good ideas, John, that you love.
Oh my goodness. How do I enjoy your many, many good ideas?
They're brilliant. I especially, you can tell if it's been a really good idea because John will go, maybe next year we could think about that.
Or I might say, we'll think about it.
I think we'll think about it means it's a better idea. I think maybe next year is like,
forget about it.
Yeah. Do that when you've got your own church, but not in St. Paul's. So, I mean, obviously, John, you're an awesome TI. We know this, but is there anything you would do differently, having learnt from the mistakes you made with me?
Well, I'm not sure I'm that good at TI. I have a good curate, so that helps a lot. And you are my first curate.
I know.
I had a great curacy myself, so I think I learned a lot from my TI. What would I do differently? Well, I think every curate is different.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been any mistake, flagrant mistake.
No,
your training.
No mistakes whatsoever. I am beautifully trained.
But of course, every person is different, and the different context, and then it depends. You were a teacher for many years. You have lived experience, so it is the kind of training needs of each person are so different. So I think there's not such a case as 2 curates that you would do it identically.
Yes, that seems reasonable.
It varies from person to person, from context to context, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I hope that has answered the question of how to train your curates. I make me sound like a dragon.
And that curates are not just an extra pair of hands, and that they are useful all the time.
All the time, we certainly are.
Because it's about them and how they flourish and how they train and develop and be the priest that God wants them to be.
Yeah,
as you would say.
Yes, absolutely. That sounds like a good end of the report, actually, John. We can save that one. So I think that's all there is to say on that topic. And we are going to move on thinking about how curates arrive with so much experience. Another question someone had asked is about our journey. How on earth did we, Spanish bloke and don't know how to describe myself. Anyway, how did we both end up in Whitley Bay?
So we'll talk about our vocational journey.
What happened before we were in Whitley Bay and how that's shaped what we do here.
So we might do 2 podcasts to cover both journeys.
Yeah, it would be interesting to contrast them. So I think that's about it for this week. As ever, if you've got any questions, then please email them to creepingupthecandle@gmail.com.
And do not forget to like, to follow, and to tell all your friends and acquaintances and colleagues about our podcast.
Thanks for listening.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Creeping Up the Candle. We hope you enjoyed it. If so, please follow us and we'll be back with another episode very soon. And last but by no means least, thank you so much to Kevin and Estelle Holland for providing the music.